Hello and welcome back to Gen Z on Leadership. I'm Gabriel Gary, the host, and today on the show I got the honor of interviewing Mrs. Elise Nieshalla, the Indiana State Comptroller. Some previous accomplishments she has achieved are she has her bachelor's degree from the Oral Roberts University and her master's degree from Indiana University, Indianapolis. She has previously served on the Boone County Council from 2016 to 2023, including as president from 2021 to 2023. She also served as an adjunct faculty member at the O'Neill School for Public and Environmental Affairs, and she has served in the role of Indiana State Comptroller since December 1st, 2023. It was a very interesting and informative conversation about how money works in government. I hope you enjoy the interview, and without further ado, please enjoy. Thank you so much, Comptroller Nieshalla, for coming on the show. It's great to have you here.
My pleasure to join you, Gabriel.
So I just want to kind of get started with the questions here and just asking, what's the day-to-day operation level of being the State Comptroller of Indiana? What does a typical day look like for you?
Our duties include the accounting and the reporting of all the state's funds. So quite a few meetings pertaining to that duty.
Mhm.
And then in addition, we distribute the taxes that are collected by the state of Indiana back to all the local units of government. So counties, cities and towns, et cetera, and school districts. That's another large part of our duty. And there are a lot of meetings that take place to make sure that that effort happens seamlessly.
Mhm. Next question for you is, what has been the most rewarding part of your job and favorite part of your job as the Comptroller?
I have for you here the annual comprehensive financial report for the state of Indiana. It's 900 pages long.
Wow.
This is the tangible evidence to the strong position of the state of Indiana. And it's absolutely essential that this information is known, but as you might imagine, not too many folks are going to peruse this voluminous report. So we took it upon ourselves in my first year of service to come up with a format that was like a newsletter, 2 pages. And this is it right here, Indiana's financial report. And it condenses all of the key information in this report onto 2 pages so that Hoosiers can read about Indiana's revenue and expenses and the highlights thereof. They can read about our AAA credit rating and how we've earned that and what goes into it. They can read about our cash reserves, our low debt position, the 4th lowest debt per capita state in the nation, which is quite an accomplishment. And so we're happy to have gotten this into the hands of many Hoosiers and making sure that they understand it is a true privilege to be in the state of Indiana as a small business owner, as a family, as a local unit of government, because we're on a rock solid financial position, which is unlike that of our federal government, mind you.
Mm-hmm. I'll be sure to note that in the description of this episode. I'll put a link to that newsletter because I think that's really important because, most people aren't going to read it, especially even like legislation as well. When you have like these, 1,000-page legislation or bills that are, getting passed, it's really hard to take all that in. So I think that's pretty smart that you guys have developed that in the comptroller office.
Thank you for your feedback.
Yeah.
We totally agree. This right here is the fiscal report for fiscal year 2023.
Mhm.
We just completed the audit on fiscal year 2024 and we'll be issuing the latest financial report. So we'll send you the one for fiscal year 2023. And then when we get an update for 2024, that there is a change from 23 to 24 in that our position on being a low debt state, it increased. In 2023, we were the 7th lowest debt per capita state in the nation, and now we are the 4th. So
Wow.
going in a good direction.
My next question for you is, how do you work bipartisanly to use funds responsibly to help all Hoosiers and Americans? Yeah.
With our duty to distribute the tax revenues collected on behalf of the local units of government, it goes out to all of them. And that is a very bipartisan service that we provide per the Constitution of the state of Indiana. We put in place all the money that the legislature budgets, and that's a bipartisan effort. We make sure that all of the money that they choose to appropriate in whichever direction that absolutely gets carried out. So we take our job very seriously and serve all Hoosiers in doing so.
Mhm. I was just wondering, so your term started then with Holcomb's first term, is that correct?
So the prior comptroller, Tara Klutz, resigned a year into a 4-year term. She had served faithfully and diligently for 7 years as our comptroller. And when she resigned, per the state constitution, it is the governor's duty to appoint a replacement. And so I'm honored to have received that appointment and am fulfilling the 3 years remaining of former Comptroller Klutz's term. And then in 2026, I will be running to serve as Comptroller for another 4 years through the state delegate convention.
Mhm.
And then most hopefully making it past that to go on to be on the ballot in the general election in November of 2026.
Interesting. And along with that is in your term, can you share like an example of a challenging financial situation that you faced and how you addressed it as the state comptroller?
Well, I think I would go back to the annual comprehensive financial report.
Mhm.
This is a challenge to compile this every year, and we work in partnership with all of the agencies and departments. They funnel up all of their financial information. We compile it, we check it. It is audited, but it is a massive effort. And coming into this office, I had seen this done on the county level. I served as the president of the Boone County Council. But to see this massive amount of figures pulled together to provide excellent financial reporting for Hoosiers is quite an amazing effort to behold. And then to take that challenge of, well, how do we distill this down to a format that Hoosiers will read?
Mhm.
That was probably the biggest challenge that we had. What do you include? What do you not include? And we've been so successful, thankfully, in pulling together a report that really has legs. It's getting out there as it needs to, and looking forward to providing this information afresh. In addition to providing this information to our legislators, who this year is a budget session. And we have great historical data that tells the story of Indiana being a turnaround state, because 20 years ago, we had a great amount of debt and our financial outlook was bleak as a state. There was a governor who came along by the name of Mitch Daniels, and he had Indiana in his crosshairs. We were going to have a balanced budget, and we were not going to continue with deficit spending. And he led the way, and the legislature supported him. And every governor since him and legislature has made it a point that we are going to be financially responsible as a state. And in fact, in 2018, the legislature passed a balanced budget amendment. So now we have that constitutional duty, the legislature does, to pass a balanced budget every budget session. So Indiana is a turnaround state, and that is a great story to tell, and to be able to provide that to our legislators, to give that historical data of how did we get to be in this strong position that we're in today, and how do we continue to be in this strong position, and making sure that we maintain healthy cash reserves and our low debt position and our well-funded pensions, so that we can maintain a AAA credit rating, which is the highest credit rating you can have. And we've earned it from all 3 independent credit rating agencies.
Absolutely. And then another thing for you is, what leadership qualities do you think are essential for members of government who are managing funds across the country? I'm sure you've worked with other comptrollers and also previous, your predecessor that you mentioned. Like, what are some leadership qualities that you think are essential specifically for comptroller offices in America?
Transparency. It is so critical. That is a fundamental service that we provide. Transparency and fiscal responsibility. Those 2 items provide the bedrock for perpetuating a free society. very critical services that we provide here. We have Indiana's transparency portal that puts all of Indiana's financial information at the fingertips of Hoosiers. We're talking salaries, wages, benefits, all the appropriations made, all of the monies that are spent and accounted for, the contracts that the state engages in. That information needs to be out there, and we are actually leaning into a major improvement to the transparency portal. And that is, over the last handful of years as a state, we have received more federal dollars than we ever thought possible. We know how that federal money has been spent, but it is not easily found. So we are bringing all that information, getting it uploaded into the transparency portal, how every agency and department has spent federal grant dollars. Once we accomplish that, then we will be going down to the local level for every county and city and town for how they have spent the vast amounts of federal dollars that they've received, how that money has been spent. That is absolutely critical, that that information be out there in a very transparent way. And in pursuing this effort, we are also sharing that the federal government cannot continue with this vastly increased amount of spending that they are sending to us at the state and local level. And we need to be prepared for them to reel that in and actually hope that they do so, because they are spending money that they do not have. They're plundering your future, the future of our children, our children's children. Deficit spending that they are engaged in is dangerous and reckless, and they need to change that practice for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, I need to take advice from the state of Indiana, it sounds like. I mean, yeah.
Yes. Well, we are grateful to be in a position to be able to be a strong example of fiscal responsibility for any other unit of government, and certainly for the federal government.
Mm-hmm. So with your position in Boone County and now, I guess, as the comptroller, comparing those two together, like what's your biggest takeaway or lesson that you've learned from being the Indiana State Comptroller?
It is the incredible effort that goes into internal controls. So we do the accounting and the reporting for all of the state's transactions and funds. And then you have the State Board of Accounts that audits us and all of the governmental entities. There is just vast amount of layers of internal controls that happen to make sure that we are as free as we can be of any fraud, and also to protect us from cyber attacks, to be able to detect it and act on it or block it. So there's a very, what's the word? We lean into making sure that internal controls are in place. And where we find a gap, we work immediately to find a way to close it, or a loophole here or there. It's a continuous effort. You're always working to try to find where are the problems and how do we address them. But very proud of the controls that are in place.
Mm-hmm. Final question for you, and I ask all the guests on Gen Z leadership, is what advice do you have for young people to be great leaders in everything they do? And then I guess specifically young people interested in public office like that you hold or your colleagues hold.
First, learn how to listen well, to understand the needs of others, and then ask, what can I do to help? As far as getting involved politically, this was shared with me, and I think it's such great advice, and that is to walk before you run. And that has a very practical application. For example, I'll just use myself in this. When I asked myself, okay, I think I have to get involved. I feel a sense of duty. What do I do? What I needed to do was to help other candidates who were further along in building relationships of trust, who were further along in contributing toward the needs of others than I was at that moment in time. Find those candidates that are rock solid. Get behind them, walk door to door for them, make calls for them, contribute in any way that I could to them. And through that, through helping them succeed, you're building relationships of trust, you're opening doors of opportunity. And that, again, goes to walk before you run, meaning running for office.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. That's great advice for the next generation. And thank you for coming on. Comptroller of Indiana, Elise Nieshalla. All right, I hope you enjoyed that episode, that exclusive interview with the Indiana State Comptroller, the Mrs. Elise Nieshalla. If you want to learn more about her and her position, you can go to the description of this episode. If you want to learn more about the podcast, you can also go to the description of this episode where my website is linked. As always, stay tuned for all new episodes as I try to post at least one a month.